What's your answer to that question, SC? Did we create that framework for a success of the majority since 1994?
No. I think I get invited because I'm the problem child of the South African political debate. Yes, I never know whether I'm invited because I'm part of the solution or the problem. I'm very happy to see young people.
Yes.
I think you must give them a round of applause. Partly because I think they are better than us. Anyway, better than us because the answer I'm going to give you is this. When I said to you no, it's because you can only solve the problem of a country and have prosperity if you can be honest about the problem. What is the problem? Usually we are very cagey about what is the problem. We are cagey because we don't want to offend white people who have money. We don't want to offend classes that are powerful. We don't want to deal with subjects that are painful. We don't want to deal with the fact that why did these kids come in 2 quantum taxis and not in a speed train. We don't want to deal with why all of you woke up in New Brighton and Gwazakele and Motherwell. And so basically the reason I say no, it's because we've not been able to theorize and ask the question, what's the difference between what happened before 1994 and what happened after? And I'm going to start with this because I'm a lawyer and we are told when we critique the Constitution, and I think they mean me. You know, there's nothing wrong with holding different views. And the people who like the Constitution as it is have a right to like it. And those of us who critique bits of it have the same right. In fact, the Constitution grants us the right to critique it as a constitution. And so this idea that when we critique it, we are anti-constitutionalist is narrow. And I think the problem, Dr. Mtimga, for us to analyze, when I said before, is this. Let's start at the basic. Before I go to the psychological aspects of coloniality, the material aspects, the educational aspect, and probably the religious and spiritual aspects, is this. Who was poor before 1994? Who was landless? Who was begging? Who was living in Summerstrand and who was living in New Brighton? Who was owning the key strategic assets of the country, the mines, the banks, and everything else? And who lives on the margins of the human condition? Who comes with a taxi to PE town? And who comes in a snazzy car? And those are basic things. And the reason we are unable to answer that, and the reason our constitution is unable to answer that, is because we are a bit dishonest about theorizing that actually South Africa remains and was a settler colonial economy in which each and every one of us here, black and white, were conditioned to think the way we are thinking now. In order for the 10% that Jacob was talking about to be served by the 90%. That's a product of a conditioning. It's supported by the 90% at their expense, loved by the 10% to be served by the 90%. And until we deal with that, and so when you have a constitution, one of the problems that we heard, Dr. Mtimga, about this, and those who say the constitution is the best constitution in the world, and I think you've seen them, check who says this. Where do they live? Go ask your grandmother in New Brighton whether she lives in a shack because this is the best constitution in the country. This thing is said by people who are comfortable with the status quo, who can live, who have something to eat tonight, and they see the world through the eyes of someone who's content. And so we need to theorize what that is. And the Constitution is an important document. But there are hundreds of constitutions. South African one is just one of them, and you don't have to like it to be a constitutionalist. And so I think, Dr. Mtimka, one of the biggest problems we had, we were in a hurry to set down as a constitution aspirational issues before we could actually liberate. A constitution, in my view, and I differ with so many lawyers on this, is that a constitution can never liberate you. You draft it in order to consolidate what you've won. It means it's a guideline of you having won. And if you want to really check yourself and your politicians, whether you are committed to what we are talking about, you must try every time to look at the world from the perspective of the person who's less fortunate than you. And if we looked at it that way, the Constitution would not be great with 45% of unemployment, with key strategic assets of the country in white hands, with kids, black children, relying on NSFAS to have bare and very poor, bad, colonial, unfree education.
Thank you.
Let me leave it there for now.